All right, here we are. Welcome to All Things Odd. Let's get some things going here and we'll get some people invited in. I'm Dr. Natalie Phillips,
And I'm Dr. Hannah Galloway.
and we are doing our show every Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We have a fun show for you to plan today. But before we get there, I'm going to have Dr. Galloway talk real quick about our YouTube channel here.
Yes, so if you see, this is our YouTube channel. Up at the top right, you should see some place to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And then there's like a little bell that you can hit for notifications, and it'll let you know each time we have a new show. Typically, we do a new show every Thursday, although if we're out of town or something, sometimes we do a replay. But this would be a great place to send a video to somebody, especially if they're not super tech savvy or if they don't use Facebook or other social medias. This is kind of an easy way to send them our video.
Yeah. And you can kind of catch, let's see if I can kind of move this around here a little bit. We've got so many screens open. We've got so many cool things to show you. But if we go over to playlist, you can also kind of see that we have playlists that are categorized as well. So you can catch that show if you want to. If you're looking for something in particular, we also have playlists that you can watch as well. So with that, we are going to... Can't get back to my regular screen here. We have so many cool things to show you today. Okay, so we'll take that out. And so today we are actually going to talk about, let me add this in because I think that I lost this. Basically, what is a telecoil? So let me just add that in as a banner so we can kind of see.
Yeah, so telecoils are not new by any means. They're sort of an older technology, but a lot of people don't necessarily know what it is or how to use it, or if their hearing aid, might even have the capabilities of using that. So we thought we'd kind of go back and just talk about this pretty basic topic because it possibly is getting more traction in the United States. In Europe and abroad, these teleloop systems are more available than they are in the United States. And so we thought we would kind of just talk about what they are and how they work and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull up a picture here that Dr. Galloway found. So let's start with maybe this one first, and we'll kind of talk about this here. Okay. So this is, let me take this banner off so you can kind of see what this looks like here. Okay. So this is basically a telecoil, or a audio frequency induction loop system is what they call it, AFILS. And it consists of a special amplifier and a hidden copper wire that transmits sound via a magnetic field. So it's kind of really interesting. I don't think a lot of people have seen what this looks like. Like, we talk about it. I've learned about telecoils. I know what it is, but I actually haven't even really kind of seen this like in person, right? So it's this copper wire, and this wire creates like this looped zone in any size venue, from a large auditorium even to a taxi, which I didn't even know taxis could actually be looped. I had no idea.
Yes. And actually in Europe, like bank teller stations or like where you buy a subway ticket, a lot of those places are looped, which makes a lot of sense because when you're standing there trying to buy, a subway ticket or a train ticket, it's super loud. There's a lot going on, but they loop just the region between the employee and the customer. And so then patients can hear a little bit better.
That's really cool. That's just really needed, right? And so this wire like sends this magnetic signal to any hearing device that actually has a telecoil within the zone. And so the telecoil, or what we call it a T-coil, is just very, very small and inexpensive coil of wire. So those are those little things that you're actually seeing. So there's two parts to it. There is this loop that has to go through this venue or a taxi, or like you said, like a bank teller. And then you've got to have a little small piece in the hearing aid as well, which is the actual telecoil. So let me see if I've got another photo I wanted to kind of pull up here.
And I was telling Dr. Phillips, when I was in grad school, we did something where we repaired and destroyed a lot of really old hearing aids just to kind of take them apart and see what was inside. And you can see this is a hearing aid. It's a little bit of an older picture from 2013, but actually the basic design of that hearing aid, really the housing and everything, hasn't changed too much on the outside anyway. So if you see inside, that little circled part it looks like a little spool of thread, but it's copper wire. And so what happens is when there is an electromagnetic signal present, that wire sort of becomes, if it's turned on, it becomes activated and it picks up the signal. So when I was in grad school, I remember we took telecoils out of hearing aids and put them on a clock, and it would, it would like stick because of the magnetic connection there. But that's kind of how it works from a really basic standpoint. And so, like Dr. Phillips said, I know locally the Lincoln Center is looped. So let's say you go to see a play at the Lincoln Center. As long as you're sitting within the looped area, which is usually around the seating, or, like in a church, maybe they have 2 loops on either side of the sanctuary in each group of seats. So that if you're sitting inside it, your hearing aid will be able to pick it up either automatically or by like pushing a button or something to activate that T-coil connection. And then what you're going to pick up is just the signal that's being fed through the loop. So like in the church example, the pastor is wearing a microphone, it's going over the church audio system. So it takes that signal right from the pastor's mic and then puts it through your hearing aid. So you're overcoming a lot of distance that the sound would have to travel, background noise, people flipping through their Bibles and things like that. And so it's almost like you're right up there next to the pastor listening to them talk, because the signal is less damaged, I guess I would say.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of pull this up to kind of look at it as well. But so we started off with a picture of the actual coils, right? Then we showed you a picture of what it looks like in the hearing aid. And this graphic still has a picture within the hearing aid as well. And that's some of the graphics that Dr. Galloway was talking about of where you can use it. And you can kind of see where the telecoil is and where the speaker is. And we have a really awesome video that we found to play as well. But the other thing on this graphic too is that you see that little ear sign with the T next to it. That's typically what you would look for if you are questioning whether a venue has this loop system that would work with the telecoil. So that's one thing I wanted to point out on this graphic. The other thing, so like they may have it on a Google map, which will show you. They might have it on the ticket box office, that little ear with the T on it. So just kind of look for that. The other thing I wanted to show you is, again, I'm glad this graphic still has that picture of the telecoil that we showed you initially in the hearing aid, because a lot of people ask for that. Now, a lot of people have hearing aids that are very, very small, and they like it small, right? But then if they want the option to have a telecoil, you've got to be able to add that into the hearing aid. And so most hearing aids that will have a telecoil won't be necessarily the ones that go deep in that ear canal, right? Or very, very tiny that run on a very small battery behind the ear either. Most hearing aids that we're seeing that people are wearing anyway should have it. But again, this was something that we thought is worth talking about, because we talk a lot about Bluetooth connectivity, but we don't talk a lot about, does your hearing aid have a telecoil, right? And so there's definitely something that you want to pay attention to and maybe talk to your audiologist about as well. So
I'll add that some hearing aids, in order to have rechargeable battery units, they have sacrificed the telecoil. So I know one manufacturer that we order from a lot, it's either the rechargeable device or the telecoil device. And so you might not know, the difference or why you would need a telecoil. So this just sort of helps you to make an informed choice. And talk to your audiologist about it, because they may be able to find you a certain hearing aid that has both a telecoil and rechargeable at the same time. So it's just something that if you don't know about it, you don't know to ask or where you could possibly use it. But it can make you hear a lot better. And we have a sound sample that Dr. Phillips is going to play that kind of shows a T-coil signal or not. And in a noisy venue, it makes a really big difference.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to pop Dr. Galloway out of it. I was kind of going in between a lot of different things that we wanted to show you. Okay. So let's see if I can find where I know where it is. Okay. Hold on here. Let me fix a few things. So, again, have that conversation with your audiologist if you don't know whether or not you have a telecoil in your hearing aid.
Well, and also have that conversation with your church or, your local venue that you go see plays or something like that. The Americans with Disabilities Act mandates that places, public venues like that have to have some sort of accommodation for patients with hearing loss. But I don't think it's really specified what it is. And I've heard from some patients like, yeah, if you go to the movie theater and you ask about it, what they give, they might have like a handheld device that you can like read captioning on or something like that. But a teleloop would also be included in that accommodation. So it may be something that if you bring it to the attention of the church, maybe that's something a lot of people could take advantage of, but they just don't know. I know there's a website called Loop Colorado, and we had a woman come talk to us when I was at UNC about setting those up, and they work all over Colorado. So I'm sure other states have similar programs.
Yeah, so I have this video queued up here. So it is our friend and your friend probably as well, Dr. Cliff. He has an excellent video on the benefits of a hearing loop system and a telecoil. So we're going to play this here for you. All right.
Being said, the hearing aid telecoil is perhaps the most original form of wireless technology that we have inside of a hearing aid, and it is also the best way to hear better in a public venue like a church or a movie theater or performance theater or even convention center. All you have to do is look for a blue sign like this in whatever facility you're in, and then you'll know that your hearing aid telecoil will be able to wirelessly tap into the audio at that particular facility. A hearing aid telecoil will also help you be able to hear better on a telecoil-enabled phone. What you need to look for on a particular phone is a T rating. If it has a T rating of 1 through 4, then you know that your hearing aid telecoil will be able to wirelessly collect sound from that phone and put it directly into your ear. And a rating of T4 is the best. A telecoil, also known as a T-coil, is an extremely small coil of wire that can be installed inside of a hearing aid. This T-coil can pick up electromagnetic signals from an induction loop that is installed inside of one of these facilities. Imagine that you go to a local town hall meeting. If that facility has an induction loop connected to their sound system, the T-coil could pick up the sound of whoever is speaking into the microphone at that meeting and send it directly into your ears, making their speech significantly clearer than with just using your hearing aid microphones alone. Let me play you a sound sample in a public venue. First, while using hearing aids without the telecoil.
And so once a month, they'll gather and they'll say, let's think about one specific touch point and let's brainstorm ideas as to how we not reinvent the process, but maybe just take it one level up.
Now, if you heard that the same way that I heard it, you can tell that there is a huge difference in clarity when you're using a telecoil versus when you don't use a telecoil. Well,
all right. So that I thought was super cool. Thanks, Dr. Cliff, because I think that it totally demonstrates exactly why you would actually need a telecoil. So super cool video that we wanted to thank our dear friend Cliff Olson. And if you don't follow his channel, follow his channel. But I think that there's a lot of people out there that follow Dr. Cliff. But great information there. So.
Well, and I think for me, the biggest difference that I heard was the lack of reverberation. So reverberation is when sound bounces around. If you've ever been in a gymnasium and you bounced a basketball one time and then you heard like all the reflections of the basketball bouncing in a venue with high ceilings, not a lot of sound absorptive materials, that's what happens is that sound is just like bouncing off the hard walls. And so it's really that in that first clip, it was really hard for me to pick up because I was hearing all the reverberations of the sound. And so that's just, the kind of thing that you can overcome if you have a direct signal, like they did with the T-coil. So.
Yeah. All right. So we kind of talked about, let's kind of review this here. What is a telecoil and a loop system? So if you've missed that, head back to the beginning of our show when we first started. Where would I use a telecoil? We talked about that as well in different venues that even if the ones that you don't think, right, like the taxi in the bank teller type of scenario, you wouldn't think that, but they might also have that available, which you can use. And then also, why do I need a telecoil? Again, it's something that, again, depending on those different environments or venues that you're involved in, it might be something that you need to kind of talk about with your audiologist or maybe with your new set of hearing aids. And then if my Does my hearing aid have a telecoil? I think what's interesting, what Dr. Galloway had said too, is that some manufacturers, because of the size, had to actually trade off the telecoil for maybe rechargeability. So just kind of make sure, to see if your actual hearing aid has that telecoil option, right? So those are just some of a review. All right. So, really what brought up this conversation that we decided to have with telecoils today is because I actually saw an article that was put out by another friend of ours, Abram Bailey, with Hearing Tracker. So I wanted to kind of pull that up. And just so that I went ahead and put the link to Dr. Cliff's YouTube video in the comments. And then we're also going to put the link to this particular article in the comments as well, because what was very cool is this came out on Hearing Tracker, and it basically said that Google Maps is now adding hearing loops to websites for hearing aid telecoil users. So it reminds me of an app that I think we had a conversation about with one of our friends, Lindsay, about restaurants and the noise level of restaurants.
On Yelp,
conversation we had with Lindsay.
Yes. And I've had patients tell me that too, that on Yelp, when you go to look for a restaurant, it'll tell you like how noisy it is in there, or like they rate the hearing ability or something in the restaurant. And I've had patients say that they will look up new restaurants, especially in Fort Collins. We get a lot of, really like modern and kind of hip restaurants. And so sometimes the acoustics aren't always the best. And so I've had patients tell me they rely on Yelp to find out if there's, going to be, if it's a poor listening scenario or not before they try.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. But what this article came out on Hearing Tracker, and I posted the link to it. So it's a clickable link in our comments, both on YouTube and also on Facebook. But this is now saying that Google Map has this accessibility. So I tried it out because I was like, all right, let's see if this works. So I'm going to kind of show you this here. So basically you could type in Richard Rogers Theater in New York City. So that's what I did. And then it shows you where you actually find to see if that particular theater has this looping system. So if you can kind of see this, what I did was I typed in Richard Rogers Theater. And actually, I think I've been to this theater here in New York City. But you type in Richard Rogers Theater. And then what you do is this part right here that says popular musicals, it's like an other, more information. This is where you would click on this little arrow here. And there it says right here under the accessibility tab, assistive hearing loop. Okay. So, I mean, sometimes you might have to peruse it, but if you Google it, the Google Maps, you pull up the map and you click on that information, that's that extra information right here. You will find out if they have it listed in their accessibility option right here. So it does work. It's really kind of cool to see if you can kind of see that or not. So we thought that was kind of really interesting. And again, I put that link here for Hearing Tracker. So thank you, Hearing Tracker, for keeping us up to date, as well as Abram Bailey, and letting us know that this is something that people can find even on Google Maps. And so we thought that was kind of interesting to share as well.
Yeah, that is really cool. And especially, I mean, I'm thinking like being in New York, you want to go see a Broadway show, you're going to be in town. There's multiple theaters that you could attend, and being able to look and see, oh, this one's looped, I might have a better chance, of picking up more of the dialogue or whatever. So I think that is really handy to let people know, because not everybody's looking at the box office for the little blue, sticker. And you might just get in your seat and then go, oh, I wonder if it's looped. Right. If you know how to activate your telecoil, you could just check and see if there was a signal to be picked up. And you could do that anyway. But some patients might not know that they even have a telecoil. It might be set to auto T, which is usually done for landline phones. And so actually in that Dr. Cliff video, he talks about how you can tell if the phone has a telecoil. I was under the impression that all landline phones had telecoils, but apparently not. And he was saying that there's a rating of 1 to 4, and 4 is the highest rating, the best connection. So whenever you hold up like a landline phone, like we have here in our office, whenever the signal gets close to the hearing aid, a lot of times we'll put something called auto T or auto phone. So when the receiver of the phone gets close to the hearing aid, it automatically picks up that signal for you without you having to do anything. But if you didn't know what it did, I actually had a patient who's trying out some new hearing aids, and there was an auto T program enabled within the hearing aids. And he said that every time that he picked up the work phone or something, that he would hear this like clicking sound, and he just didn't know what was happening. And it was actually making him hear better over the office phone, but he didn't know what was happening. And he thought it was, having some sort of interference or something like that. Those auto T programs can also be set so that if you're somebody who always uses the right ear when you talk on the phone, anytime it picks up the auto T signal, it will mute the other side or reduce the other side so that it's not distracting. And I've had patients report that that's really super helpful because they can hear more of what's coming out of the phone and less what's going on around them that their other hearing aid is picking up.
Yeah, awesome. All right, and just wanted to say thank you, Rashid. Thank you for joining in. I'm just kind of giving some information. All right, so just as kind of a recap, again, check with your audiologist to see if you have a telecoil system in your hearing aid, right? Venues to think about. Hannah, you want to run through some possible venues that might have T-coil systems?
Yeah, so like churches, concert venues, not in the United States, but in Europe, I've seen it a lot in public transportation systems, like, wherever you would go take the subway or buy train tickets, bank tellers, things like that. So anywhere where it's, a really noisy environment and there's going to be one person speaking possibly over a microphone that you want to be able to hear better. I think plays make a huge difference for people.
Yep. And then I just fit somebody who he really wanted it to work in just like a Rotary Club meeting. And they use our system here, or our venue here, is called the Lincoln Center, but they have multiple different meeting rooms as well as big auditoriums, but they meet in a meeting room. And he said their system, their speaker system is terrible. But as soon as he got his hearing aids and he went over to his T-coil and used it, he's like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed for this particular thing. So Rotary Club meetings, things like that.
I will add too that I've had patients say that it kind of depends on where you're sitting. Like, let's say the Lincoln Center, it's there's a lot of, I don't know how many seats are in each theater. They do have some smaller theaters there too. But if you're in the very middle of the seats, you're not as close to the wire if you're on as you would be if you were on the edge of the seat. So I've had some patients tell me, well, if we get seats like close to the edge of the, where the seating area is, I pick up the signal better. So that was kind of interesting for me. And that may have just been that person's hearing aid. But I think the bigger the loop is, the signal is going to be less strong on the very inside of it than it would be. So if it's someplace like you have season tickets, that would be something that you could try out. And you may be able to ask somebody if there's an AV person. They may be able to give you some like tips on where's the best place to sit. But if you initially tried it one time, don't get discouraged if you felt like it wasn't the best thing in the world, because I think that the strongness of the signal also matters and how well.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. But I had a friend, his name is William Dials, out in California, and he would actually go and loop movie theaters. But instead of just making one big, huge loop around the room, he actually went through every single seat, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But then he also would use those movie theaters for his practice to be able to, like, he would have movie tickets to give to his patients to say, hey, go try out this movie, because he knew that that particular theater was looped within the seats as well. So that's a really good point about where you sit, unless it's something where they really did the loop through the seats, which unless there's an audiologist or somebody that actually knows that, or a person that's good about that, would it really be within the seats?
There was somebody from Loop, Colorado that came to speak to us at UNC when I was a graduate student. And I remember her talking about that like, let's say a church, there's usually a set of pews on each side of the sanctuary. Like, each set needs to be looped separately. But what you're saying would be even better. But I doubt a lot of places would take the time to do that because of how much time it would take and how much wire it would take. I'm sure that it would be more expensive or whatever. But you could ask somebody, like, if you have season tickets someplace, just ask if you could talk to one of the AV people and just see, like, where is the loop?
Yep.
Where would be the best seat for me to take advantage of the loop signal if I want to use that with my hearing aids?
Yeah.
If you really want to nerd out about it. So
yeah. I love this, because we do this show to try to keep people aware of different things and put out some information out there. But it's funny because Dr. Galloway and I sit here and we're like, we're still learning when we're talking to each other.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we learn from each other, and we both kind of do our own independent research before the show. And it's like, I was asking her, have you ever seen like an actual telecoil? She's like, no, I haven't. And so we looked it up, and we both learned some different things today.
Yeah,
so
it's awesome. Awesome. All right. So again, if you guys have any topics that you want us to cover, I mean, it's good for us as well to kind of review things and look things up and get the most current, information out to people just to kind of help with the awareness and what we do as audiologists. Then please let us know, put it in the comments, share this out, or send us a message as well. And you can find us every week, every Thursday, 12:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on a whole new episode of All Things Odd. So we will see you then. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.